Today we are here to make a boom bap sample pack from some drums that we recorded at the TELEFUNKEN Studio in Connecticut, and we're going to do it all in Logic with stock plugins mostly. So anyway, let's get started. So first things first, I have a blank screen here. A blank session. I just loaded the reference into a track. I'm not going to play it just for copyright issues, but basically what I did, all the drums, you can kind of see it on the waveform, the drums are panned to the right side, so I was just listening only on the right hand side. So that's a little trick you can do in Logic to hear what's going on. So anyway, let's drag in the drums. I'm just going to mute this so we don't accidentally play it back. All right, so I have two sets of stems. This first one is the performance of the loop, and the second one is the one-shots. So it's always good to do one-shots when you're recording drums or drum loops because, oh, why is that converting? Probably a different sample rate or something. Oh, it doesn't like my my file naming because they're supposed to be mono files, but they're named as stereo files. But it looks like it'll play back. Let's hear it. Yeah, it's playing. All right. So we have the one shots here. Let's drag those into that same track. We'll use existing tracks for these. So anyway, it's always good to do the one-shots when you record drums because the one-shots are great for like if you need to make an edit or something, or if you want to do a sample pack or change up a fill or anything like that, then you'll have the one-shots. And it's best to do the mix first and then print them out as stereo files. At least that's what I've found, especially for sample packs, because we don't need stems for sample packs. All right, so we have everything loaded in here. I believe the tempo is 90. Let's try that and just make sure. We can always do the BPM counter in Logic, which is right here under the metering. Let's take a listen. .9. I'm going to guess that was actually supposed to be 90. Now, I'm not sure why this isn't lining right up to the grid, but that's okay. Okay, so this is supposed to be the one here. So let's just drag these edges over so we can line this right up on the grid. That'll make everything much easier. Line this kick up to the one. And then let's just nudge through. And you can see as you nudge through, the timing fluctuates a little bit, but that's just typical for live performance. No one's a machine. So anytime you have a live drummer, they're going to be a little off the grid here and there, but generally on. You can tell it was recorded to a click because all of the hits land in the vicinity of where they're supposed to be. We're zoomed in pretty far here, so. All right, so that's the correct tempo. Now we're just going to do a quick little mix. Let's just pull up the mixer, bring down all the faders. And this had, I'm not even going to go into which mic is which because we've done that in other videos, but it had a bunch of different mics. A lot of the vintage Neumann mics, vintage TELEFUNKEN mics, and then the modern TELEFUNKEN mics as well. So an amazing mic collection. But the mic setup was based on the classical like 4 mic sections. So it had a kick, a snare, a kit, and a overhead, mono overhead. But we just did multiple mics for each position. So what we're going to do is just pick the ones that sound best in relation to the sample, which we can't play for copyright reasons. But I listened to it before, so I have a mental image of what it's supposed to sound like. All right, so let's just loop a section, and then we'll start mixing this thing. Just going to use the mouse to keep it quick. Just hear the different kick mics. I think this one or the one before is the closest to the reference. Let's throw the drum gate on here. So that's going to be dynamics, noise gate. Let's just start with the first one. And we can use the sidechain filter, the built-in sidechain filter of the gate to make sure it only opens on the kicks. And the way I'm doing that is I'm just filtering out the highs above 260. So the signal that's triggering the gate is only the very, very lows, and that's how we get it to not open for the snare, because the snare is only making the threshold trigger, well, I guess it just did there, but mostly it's only below, the trigger is only above 260 hertz. Let's see if we can raise that up a little more so we just only get the kicks. Bring this down a little bit more, all the way down to 200. We can open up this release a little more so it lets the decay of the drum ring a little longer. And let's hear that with the other gate, the other snare. Copy and paste this gate. All right, so now we have a nicely gated kick sound. So let's pull up the snare next. I'm going to reorganize these. Move the kit mics down below the overheads, and then we'll move the snares up right next to the kicks. All right, so let's hear the snare mics. Excuse me. That was that vintage RCA mic. That one's almost like a ribbon. It might actually be a ribbon. But that's that really dark sounding snare. This was definitely the most unique of the three, of the four. See, this is more of a traditional snare sound. Maybe we'll blend those two. Let's hear this one. That one's too thin for the sound we're going for. Same with that one. That's more the darker sound we're looking for on this reference. All right, let's pull up these overheads and see what this sounds like. That's not bad. Let's hear this one. I think that first one's a little more the darker vibe we're looking for. This one's even darker. Yeah, this third mono overhead is the one right here. That's nice. It just brings a little bit of the top end back to the snare and kit. All right, let's hear these kit center mics. Might be too bright. That might be the one that's only getting a little bit of the transient in there, and it's not very bright. All right, I think just off the bat, that's kind of the general sound that we're looking for. Now it was clip it, so I'm just going to bring these down a little bit. All right, so now we have no clipping. And then we can throw just a little compressor on the master. I know these were recorded with really high-end mics, so honestly you don't, I mean, I know we've done all kinds of plugins in the past, but that's one of the advantages of recording with really high-end equipment is you don't need to do that much processing on it after the fact. So I like to do a attack time around between 30 and 50 milliseconds. We'll go for 44 on this, and we'll do a fast release. So the compressor lets the transient through, compresses, and then pops back out. I got a 3-to-1 ratio, 3.1 to 1. Threshold is at -26. Let's hear if any of these different modules make it sound any different. That's really bright. I like that studio VCA. That one's cool. It's kind of squishy though. The reference had a little more punch to it. I like this studio VCA. I think this might be the one. Let's hit it a little harder. Throw a little distortion on it. Oh, that clip is nice. Let's level match the input and the output. You can see the input meter here and the output meter here. So the input is peaking around -3. Let's make the output, we'll bring down the makeup gain till the output is peaking around the same spot. Alright, let's ballpark the same. So now we can bypass this in and out and hear what the compressor is actually doing. That's without it. It's nice, it's bringing out a little more of the articulation, a little of the body of the kit. I'm monitoring at a pretty low level in here too. So then let's throw an adaptive limiter on here just to bring it up to modern loud specs. Everybody likes their stuff maxed out on volume, right? Let's do it without hitting too much gain reduction here. All right, so it's just barely tapping the gain reduction just a little bit. This adaptive limiter is not as configurable as the compressor, so this is just to make sure that there's no peaks. Optimal look ahead. I don't think we really need the look ahead. We can just apply that 20 milliseconds. And let's make the output ceiling -0.1. So now we're going to get no clips on our output with minimal processing. So that's kind of it. You know, you can do whatever plugins you want at this point. I'm just doing it, you know, quick and dirty to just use some stock plugins. But the idea here is at this point in the process, you want to get the mix balance where you want it. So that's kind of the first thing. So we'll just loop a random section, mix it up a little. And now we're going to move into step 2, which is where we go in and pick out the actual loop, if this hasn't been done already, which in this case it hasn't. So we're going to listen through the whole performance and kind of take note of the bar numbers of the loops we like. And another way you can do this is to drop markers. I actually forget what my key command for that is in Logic. I haven't used Logic in a little while. But you can go to your key commands here and edit the key commands, and then we can just look it up real quick. Marker. Create marker is Shift Command M for me. So I'm going to drop a marker every time I hear a loop that I like, and obviously that's going to be at the end of the loop. But then we'll have a bunch of markers, so we'll know where we need to cut. So let's take a listen. That was a good 4 bars, but it looks like there's an 8-bar section coming up here with a little fill at the end. And I'm going to drop the marker. I feel like that fill would be a little too much every time. This is interesting. This is the ride here. So that could be a cool second loop. So we'll do these 8-bar loops. Drop another marker. I like that 4-bar loop there. So we got 8, 8, and 4. This part's a little busy here. Going back to the ride. Some extra fills. See if there's any cool fills we can grab. All right, there wasn't anything that was jumping out at me other than these 3 loops, so let's just stick with these 3. So we're going to just do a general chop of the sections that we wanted. So we're going to do an 8-bar here, and I just select everything, and I have a key command to split regions by locators, which on mine is command, it's not apostrophe, it's not a tilde. I'm not sure what it is, but you can set it to whatever you want in the key commands. But it's so that's split split regions by locators. And then we'll do the same thing for this 8-bar section. And this is like really general. We're gonna have to go in and fine tune these. But since everything's on the click, it should be at least in the ballpark. So we'll get our 3 loops in there, and we have backups of everything. Excuse me. So I'm going to actually delete the sections we don't need to keep it simple, nice and clean. All right. So then what we're going to do is zoom in on the edges, and I have a command that's, I just hit Z and it zooms the whole thing, the whole selection into view. So we can start there and then put the playhead right at the beginning, and let's just check where this kick is hitting in relation to the click. I believe this is the very first loop, so I'd kind of lined it right up. So that one's actually okay. What I'm looking for here is, say there's a transient like over here where it's a little early and we gotta nudge it back to make sure that the actual file that we're creating starts with the downbeat instead of like right after the beat or in the middle of a hit or something like that. And let's do the same thing to check at the end. See, that one has a kick that was a little early, so we don't want that to actually loop into our loop because it'll be a double hit. I can show you an example here. If we just play it. that that's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to just loop back to the beginning, which would be easy to do if you just cropped the region out like that. But the problem is now, if you look at our loop length, we're only at 7 bars and 4.413 beats. So it's a little less than an 8-bar loop here. So what we have to do, you can either go in and flex time stuff, or you can just do manual edits, which I find sometimes are a little easier and quicker, and you don't have to flex time and worry about moving other parts of the song around. So if we look at this fill, it looks like the whole thing's a little bit rushed up to about this beat. Even that one's a little ahead. So we can find a beat that's still on beat. Yeah, all this stuff is a little rushed through this section. Right about, so this one, well, this one's a little swung here, but we don't have to go back that far. Let's just go to this one for now. So let's take the playhead and put it right on this snare, and then we're going to break by a playhead, and we're going to slide this right over. So it's right on bar 10, beat 2. And then I'm going to open up that left edge so it overlaps, because I have my region set to overlap. And so we nudged everything a little bit right, but it's still not enough. There's still a little gap here between bar 10, beat 4, sub-beat 4, and bar 11, beat 1. So the other way we can do this is to cut on this drum here. Make sure we're selecting all of these. That's a tom, it looks like. And of course, another easy way to select all these at the same time is you can group them. Over here on the mixer, you can just make a new group real quick. And then you name it drums, or whatever you want to name it. And now we have that clipped. So let's drag it over so the right edge is right on the beat, the downbeat. So now we should have an exact 8-bar loop. Let's just check when we loop it. Now it is exactly 8 bars because it starts on bar 3, beat 1, and it ends on bar 11, beat 1. So 11 minus 3 is 8. But since we moved just these 2 random hits, the timing might still be weird. So let's check that. Let's hear how we're sounding now. This first hit sounds okay, but as this fill kind of progresses, it seems like this one's super late. So what we can do is, now that we've, actually I wonder why these didn't group together. Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you have to turn the editing selection and quantize lock audio to make these edit groups. But we can actually open up this left edge and see how this sounds. See, we're overlapping. So that left edge is going to indicate where the start of what is playing. Even though this other region has stuff that goes underneath, the one that comes in is what's going to play. So let's hear it. Nope, that sounded weird too. So let's... Now it's just getting a little crazy with the groups. This is why I don't always do the groups. So we can turn the groups off. Let's drag this over a little more. Let's actually delete this middle piece and just try dragging this whole region over the left edge of this until we're overlapping. See, that's way too long of a gap. That was... All right, so let's drag that region out. And this is what this is, a lot of back and forth if you don't flex time it. The next one we'll do flex time to show you a different type of editing. Still got that weird glitch in it. So we might have to make a couple more cuts. See, now these are actually behind the beat, pretty big time. So let's cut these up a little more individually. I'm just making sure that I'm not cutting on an actual region. I mean an actual hit. And then let's line those up a little more to the grid. This one we have to bring the left edge over. I wonder if we actually just get rid of one of those hits, what this would sound like. Nope. I'm just hitting undo and redo to get back a little bit on my edits. All right, so we're good from bar 10 beat 2, and then by bar 10 beat 3, we're a little bit behind. And we want to make sure there's audio playing the whole time so we don't have any gaps. This is a tricky one. I'm actually going to start over because I can't really get it quite the way I want it. All right, let's do that beginning part over again. That's the glory of digital, is you can mess it all up and then just undo and you're right back to where you started. See, I can get it on time, but I'm still gonna have this gap over here. So maybe let's try approaching this a different way. Let's just take some of the air in the beginning of the track and throw that on the end. Now the trick is going to be to see how this loops. Oh, we gotta go from here. That might be the move. We just have to fix this edit on the very end. Just making sure we don't have any of that kick in there. And then we're going to take our air, have that come in right on top of it. So let's hear that. And if you're careful where you cut, you don't really need crossfades. If stuff's sounding glitchy, you can throw them on there for sure, but I try to just make the cuts right before a transient so that you won't actually need them. It's still a little weird in the timing. Like, because when it loops back around, it sounds like the downbeat is coming in a little late. So let's just try to nudge this even a little bit more back. See how that sounds. And then we can even back up to this one here. Nudge this one back just a little bit too. So we're going from like rushing to behind the beat. Little push and pull. That's going pretty good right there. All right, cool. Yeah, I think that'll do it. So that's the edit for the first one. Now let's move to the second one. And first things first, we got to check that kick on the downbeat. Let's turn our groups back on so we can edit these a little easier. So this is what I was talking about. Like the kick comes in a little bit before the downbeat. So we have to trim that right up to the beginning of the kick. And then we're going to go to the next hit. And we're going to make a cut here right before. And then we take this first one and drag that right onto the downbeat. And it wasn't that far of a move, so it didn't really mess with the timing like the last one did. Same thing, we got to check the other end. So this has that little pickup, but it has a tiny little bit of the next kick in there too. So let's do the same thing. This whole thing is a little rushed. Let's take from here. Let's see if that gets us. Yeah, that gets us right where we need to go. Let's make it so it's right on. So we don't want to mess with the timing too much. And we'll do a select all of that section, make sure we're exactly 8 bars. 23 minus 15 is 8. So we're in good shape there. Now let's hear this. All right, that was much easier. That sounds way natural. That was just an easier fill. Sometimes like that first one ended up being a little tougher to edit, but that's okay. So this is the same thing. The kick came before the downbeat. That's why you only hear the tail of it. So we'll go right over. And let's cut in front of that next snare. Then we'll trim our kick right up to the beginning of the kick. Bring that right over to the downbeat. Yep, that'll do. Now let's hear the end. Yeah, it has that little extra kick on the end too. So let's trim that out. And let's try breaking here. Yeah, there isn't an exact science to where you make these edits. I'm trying to make them close so I don't move too many things around, too many drum hits. And I'm trying to not alter the feel of the loop too much. But we have to have a continuous stem playing through the whole thing is the main idea. See, that screws the timing a little. So we can actually drag this edge out more and see if that sounds any better. And that's where things get weird because of the edit groups. So you can hear those edits, it's like a click. Let's try it back to here on this hit. That's better. All right, so let's clean that up a little. Oh, I see. It's a pretty big overlap, but that's okay. There we go, let's loop that. Checking in on the YouTube comments. Thanks for checking this out, Jordan. All right, so now we have our 3 loops. So we have the mix, we have the loops. Now we just need to do the bounce. So let's select the first loop again and just listen to get through again to make sure it's cool. See, now I'm hearing the weird edit there. Yeah, it's a little strange. We might have to start pushing this beat back a little bit earlier. that's better. Still not great. All right, that. Just want to make sure it's like, sounds like a coherent performance. All right, so we have our loop, and I like to loop the section I'm going to bounce and then just hit Command B, bounce. And let's make this 24-bit, 44.1K. We just do offline bounce. Just the wave, and then we'll call this CTS Boom Bap Loop 1, 90 BPM. And then it's loop 2. Just check it. Checking that ending. I guess the hit sounds a little funny, but it sounds like that by itself. It's not the loop that's making it sound like that. So anyway, so loop 2 is good. So let's bounce that. And another key is after you bounce these out, you got to do quality control. So we're going to do that in a second. Let's check our 4-bar loop. That cymbal decay didn't get messed up by that edit. That's a good sign. Yeah, let me just check this. Yeah, it's that same thing. The kick, the little pickup kick sounded a little funny, but it's all right. All right, so loop 3. So then what we're going to do is take the bounced loops and drop them back in. So let's find them in Finder. Put loop 1 right here. Loop 2. And loop 3. And the other advantage of doing offline bounce is it should line everything right back up sample accurate. So let's zoom in and see how it did. Boom. Yeah, it looks like the kicks and everything, they're not going to look exactly the same because it is getting processed. But it looks like the phase and everything is happening at the exact same time when we zoom way in. So that's the key. Let's check a snare. Yep, snare. Oh, the snare would be down here actually. Comparing it to the snare hit in the kick mic, but we're going to get more of the sound from the actual snare mic. So yeah, those peaks are looking like the same place, so the phase is the same, so that's good. And let's check the ending. Yep. All right, let's check this one out. Kick looks good, in phase. Let's check a snare. That's looking good. Zoom way in, this kick is good. And the snare. In Logic, if you put the playhead in a certain area and then zoom in, it'll stay centered on the playhead. So that's how I'm doing this quickly. Still haven't worked out the gestures thing. Actually, I don't even have a mouse that will do that on this computer. Maybe someday. Okay, so let's take a listen to these also, but I'm not going to listen to them here because then they would run through my mastering chain, and I want to hear them just as they are, which is with the mastering chain printed already. Jordan, I see you're asking about the length of the loops, and it really depends on what you're doing with them. We've, guys like Cymatics, those guys have typically 8-bar loops, 8 and 16-bar loops. And if you look at sites like Splice and Sounds, you'll usually see shorter loops, like 1 or 2 bars. And you can always cut it down too. And if you just took like the first bar or two of any of these loops, then you would have a shorter section. So if the performance is good, that'll work. And also you can take like 2 4-bar loops and put them together, or stuff like that. It's kind of whatever you want to do with them after the fact. All right, so those all look good, sound good. Yeah, and Dylan's right. This was a more of a mic shootout session that we just happened to be using for this. So then the one shots, you're basically gonna cut them up like we were doing with the loops, and then just bounce them offline. So that's not even triggering the gates. So let's just go with this second one. So we'll just cut it right at the beginning. And I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to break it again when the meter gets down to 0. So I'm going to watch on my output meter here. Actually, this is an average. This isn't a peak, so it's a kick. It decays pretty quick, so we'll just go with that for now. We can delete that first part. Same thing with this one. We'll get a couple different kick samples. These are great for loading into drum machines or adding into drum tracks. If I'm using, like, say I was doing this for like an actual record of a live performance of a whole song, what I would do is record the whole song and then do the one shots at the end, and then I would have them as stems just on the same tracks, and then if I needed to add a kick or something, I could drag all the stems and just drop them in on the multi-track, if that makes sense. So like, if I wanted to add a kick at the beginning of this fill here, I would just take this and pop it right over here, and now you got a kick coming in, or stuff like that. But here we're making it more as like drum loops, so it's just going to be a stereo file where you can easily drop it into a sampler or another DAW. All right, let's hear this one. So we'll just cut all these out, and then we'll use that key command to set loop by regions, which on mine is Shift-Z. It's nice to have a few different kicks. You can even go crazy and do the different velocity layers, but it's nice to have a few for like a round robin thing. So if you're hitting the button on a sampler, it'll play a different loop, different sample back each time, so it won't sound like a machine gun or a drum machine or whatever, even though it is. That's a quieter kick. Let's just move to the snares. I think these 4 kicks is sufficient. And yeah, this is all non-destructive too. So we have these stems in other places, so we don't have to worry about getting rid of stuff. You can always go back if you need to. Just like to zoom way in and make sure that file is going to come right in with that hit. Make sure we get enough of that ring on that snare. Might cut off a little early there, actually. And extend both of these out. The snare has quite a bit of ring. That sounds like it's got more of it. Let's get a 3rd snare in there. We'll get some rims. Shout out to Dylan for bringing all these awesome drums all the way to Connecticut to record all these awesome sounds. And shout out to Telefunken for letting us use their awesome room and mics for the recording. Shout out to everybody who's going to download these for free after we post it. Let's go with this one. Ryan Drum, what key command to make? Oh, to cut the region as it's playing. The key command is, I think it's break regions by playhead. Let me see. I think that's what it is. Split regions. Yeah, this one right here. Split regions and events at playhead position. So you can set that to whatever you want. I have it as B. I think that's what it is in Pro Tools too. It works when it's not playing too. We'll get 2 different hi-hats. Maybe an open hat. I'm not going to go crazy because this is just going to be like a drum sample type thing. Here we get the tom. Make sure we get all the decay on that. The low tom. Give it a little more on that. What are these last things? Oh, the cymbal. I think this one's the move. I liked that one. All right, now we have all these trimmed out. So let's go and bounce them out. So we have all our settings set, right? So we can just go through them pretty quickly. We'll just make a one-shots folder. So we'll call this CTSBB kick 1. CTSBB kick 2. Kick 3. Kick 4. It's the snare. Oh, the rim, right. Hat. Open hat. Let's see, tom 1. And the cymbal. All right, cool. So we have everything bounced out. And now we're going to load it in and just make sure it loads up correctly. Let's see. Let's do the drum kit designer. Is this what I want? No, I want the... I have not wrapped my head around the new sampler in Logic. Oh, sampler, maybe it's this one. No, you know, I'm just going to do this in Battery. Oh no, it's Drum Machine Designer, that's what I'm looking for. Here we go. Drag an audio sample to the pad, that's what I want to do. See if we can drag a bunch of them. There we go. So much better than the EXS 24 days, am I right? If you don't remember, or you weren't around for those, don't worry about it. Let's just do 2 different toms and the cymbal. So let's hear how this sounds on the keyboard. Pretty awesome. All right, so that's basically it. That's how to make a boom bap pack, brought to you by Creating the Sound and Telefunken. And thanks for watching. Drop any questions or comments in the comments, and we will see you next time.